The cameras were rolling, the room was filled with the hum of microphones and bustling crew members, and the tension was palpable. Ibrahim Traoré, the leader of Burkina Faso, sat before a live global audience. The studio lights shone so brightly that they almost made it hard to see the faces of the journalists and analysts seated beside him. But Ibrahim wasn't bothered. He had been in rooms filled with tension before, and he had learned to navigate through them with a steady heart. He knew that what he had to say today could change perspectives, could lift hearts, and could spread hope where it was desperately needed. It was a political interview, nothing new. Just another conversation about international relations, the state of the world, and the global economic challenges facing leaders like himself. But what he didn't expect was the barrage of cynical questions that were about to come his way. The host, a renowned journalist, looked at him across the table. She was known for her tough questions and sharp demeanor. Her eyes gleamed with a hint of mockery as she began speaking, her words designed to rattle him, to reduce his influence, to diminish the man in front of her. "Prime Minister Traoré," she began, her voice dripping with skepticism. "You've made quite the name for yourself, haven't you? But let's be honest here. Do you really think your words will change anything? You are just a small country, struggling with corruption, poverty, and instability. What impact could you possibly have on the world stage?" There it was. The challenge. The attempt to belittle, to undermine. A punch disguised as a question. The room went silent. The studio's energy shifted in an instant. All eyes were on Ibrahim. It was clear she thought she'd caught him off guard. She was expecting a response filled with defensiveness, frustration, maybe even anger. What she got instead, however, would leave the entire studio speechless. Ibrahim didn't flinch. He didn't lean forward or show signs of agitation. Instead, he sat back in his chair, calm as ever, with a quiet, unwavering confidence that seemed to pierce through the arrogance of the question. His gaze softened, and when he spoke, it was with the kind of quiet power that commanded respect, yet carried with it a depth that reached beyond the political theatrics. "You are right," Ibrahim said, his voice measured, his words slow but deliberate. "I come from a small country. Yes, we face challenges, many of them. We have poverty, we have instability, and we have corruption. But what you fail to see is that we also have something that you seem to have forgotten. We have hope, we have compassion, and we have kindness." The room was silent, each person hanging on to his words, waiting for the next line to break the tension. The journalist, momentarily thrown off, sat back in her chair, her face reflecting uncertainty as she tried to process what had just been said. She had expected an argument, a fight, a display of political bravado, but Ibrahim was different. "I understand your cynicism," Ibrahim continued, his voice gentle but firm. "I know it's easy to see the world through a lens of doubt and pessimism, especially when you've experienced success and comfort. But the difference between you and me is this. I believe in people. I believe in the power of kindness." He paused for a moment, his eyes locking with hers. The words he spoke were not just for her. They were for every person watching, for every soul tired of hearing about the world's troubles without seeing the solution. He was speaking to the heart, and he knew it. "I've seen kindness transform lives. I've seen it lift people from despair to hope. You may look at the world and see only the bad, but I choose to see the good. I choose to believe that kindness has the power to break barriers, to heal wounds, and to change lives," Ibrahim said, his gaze unwavering. The journalist, who had been prepared for a fight, was now taken aback. For the first time in the interview, her expression softened. She wasn't sure how to respond. What could she say to that? How could she argue against something so simple yet profound? But Ibrahim wasn't finished. This wasn't just about answering one question. This was his chance to spread a a message he had carried with him his whole life. "When I was a young man," he began, "I met an elderly woman who lived on the outskirts of my village. She had nothing but a small hut and a meager garden, yet she always offered me a meal when I passed by. She never asked for anything in return, but I never forgot the way she looked at me, her eyes full of warmth, full of hope. She once told me, 'Kindness is the thread that connects us all. And if you want to change the world, start with kindness.'" The room, which had been filled with tension, now felt different. It was still, heavy with the weight of his words. The journalist, her expression softening, looked down at her notes. She had expected this interview to be a simple political exchange, but now she was being confronted with something deeper, something more transformative than she had anticipated. Ibrahim continued, his voice full of emotion. "That woman taught me that the small acts matter. It wasn't her wealth that made her powerful. It wasn't her political influence. It was her heart. And that heart made a difference in my life and in the lives of many others." He leaned forward slightly, as if to underscore his next point. Kindness doesn't need to be grand to be powerful. It doesn't need to be flashy or loud. It's in the quiet moments, the ones where you lift someone up without expecting anything in return. I've seen kindness change lives in ways you can't measure with numbers or statistics. The journalist sat in stunned silence, her thoughts swirling. She had come here to challenge him, to expose the weaknesses of his leadership. But instead, she had been confronted with a truth that was undeniable. Kindness, hope, resilience. These were the things that had shaped Ibrahim Traoré into the man he was today. But this story didn't end with just one powerful response. Ibrahim had more to say, more to share with the world. As the conversation shifted gears, Ibrahim shared a story about a woman in his country, one who had faced unimaginable hardship. She had lost everything in a natural disaster, and yet, when he had visited her, she had offered him a meal. "You must understand," she said to him. "I have lost everything, but I still have love to give. I still have my heart, and I choose to share that with you." Ibrahim had promised to help rebuild her home. But more importantly, he had promised to help rebuild her community, to bring people together to lift each other up. "That's what leadership is about," he said. "It's not about titles or power. It's about serving others. It's about sharing kindness." As the conversation drew to a close, the journalist, now visibly moved, turned to the camera. "I think we all need to reflect on what we've heard today," she said quietly. "Kindness is more powerful than we often give it credit for." The Takuni studio was silent for a long moment, and then the applause began. It was hesitant at first, as if no one quite knew how to process the change in tone. But soon, the applause grew louder, more genuine. The room had just witnessed a man speak, not from a place of power, but from a place of heart.